Early mobile gaming mirrors the arcade era in a lot of ways. Smartphones possess limited processing power and gaming sessions typically lasted just 1 to 15 minutes. This parallels the arcade model where games needed to be lean, engage players in short bursts, and remain challenging enough to keep them feeding quarters. Similarly, the best mobile games avoided bloat, offered clear, intuitive gameplay, and stayed challenging enough to earn a permanent spot on the player's phone, often to sell cosmetics or extra lives. With these parallels in mind, the resurgence of brief, skill-based games makes perfect sense. One such remnant of the brief revival of the arcade design was 2010's Fruit Ninja. An infinite scoring game where the goal is to slice as many fruit as possible in a single finger swipe. Great audio and visual feedback, intuitive, easy to pick up, and surprisingly addictive. Fruit launch up from the bottom of the screen at variable speeds and directions. This subtlety is crucial because without it the fruit patterns would be static and predictable, quickly becoming boring. These micro variations ensure your finger movement must constantly adapt, keeping the experience fresh. I mention finger because I truly believe that the game is best experienced on its native smartphone hardware. The sword slashes move as fast as your peripheral, making the use of a mouse feel a bit trivializing. With a finger, however, not only do you get the physicality of having to move it across a small screen, you also somewhat obstruct your vision, placing more importance on pre-planned, controlled slashes. Occasionally, bombs shoot up with identical physics to the fruit. These bombs act as instant game enders, adding a layer of risk to your slicing. Not only do you have to cut as many fruit as you can, you also need to avoid hitting bombs at the same time. Of course, you always have the option of doing micro slices to catch each fruit individually. You often have to, but this yields less points, so you always have an incentive to try to combo, which requires fast, wide, risky swipes. Bombs are vital to the design, because without them, you can just do long, fast, mindless sweeps across the screen, with little care or consideration. To see how degenerate this type of play is, look no further than bombless waves in all of the modes. Equally important is the second fail state. You're only allowed to drop 3 fruits in a short window before the game ends. This checkmate layer primarily prevents players from simply letting awkward fruit fall to avoid bomb risks. But it also adds tension during bomb-free waves as the increasing pace makes it harder to comfortably slash everything. The two types of game overs feed into each other and enhance the scoring. You want to do fast, large slices to make combos which introduce higher bomb risk that you cannot avoid because of the largely removed option to simply let things drop. I say largely because you actually recover life upon reaching every 100-point milestone. This cheapens the impact of dropping fruit, but I also do not mind it. It creates a push and pull where you make a mistake, then have to reverse it with score, which usually pushes you to make risky cuts, which often leads to bomb-induced game overs. Like Whack-A-Mole, Fruit Ninja constantly tests perception, dexterity and precision, while making use of the unique hardware of its native device. In fact, adapting the dynamic of Whack-A-Mole and being one of the earliest games to embrace the touchscreen is what made it the financial juggernaut it is. Unfortunately, keeping it lean and simple or being a mobile game is not a ticket to escape being critically examined. Wave-based design is one of the big weaknesses of Fruit Ninja. Fruit and bomb launch in discrete waves, you slice or fail, then wait for the next wave. This is classic instance-based design. Nothing except your lives carries over or has any influence on the next wave. It doesn't matter how quickly or when you slashed or how many fruit you dropped. As long as you don't die in a wave, the start of the next one will be a blank slate. There are no lasting consequences. While I have personally grown to dislike this type of design, it can create a relatively engaging experience as long as the pacing is quick. The quicker the obstacles come, the less you notice the barriers between them. Fruit Ninja unfortunately stumbles here too, because of its chosen spawn structure. The frequency of waves and the speed of fruit start slow and ramp up linearly over time. This ramping is fixed, meaning no matter how fast you slice, you cannot accelerate the waves or make them flow into each other. This creates a waiting room of sorts, where the better you get at the game, the more time you have to spend in a run, playing sections you find too easy to be engaging. Any player familiar with scoring arcade games knows the waiting room well. It manifests in most, to different degrees. But it feels especially bad in Fruit Ninja because the game and its scoring is just so simple. Fruits are only cosmetically different from each other and lack special properties. There are no unique bombs, There is no extra depth to the scoring beyond what you see on the box. All of this only exasperates the discrete nature of the instance-based design. There is nothing inherently wrong with games that have simple dynamics. Good ones know when to quit, they recognize that they have overstayed their welcome. Fruit Ninja, on the other hand, is an infinite scoring game, making the whole thing feel quite repetitive, despite the increasing challenge of wave speed. The arcade mode actually has a time limit, of about 90 seconds. This is a welcome change, but the mode removes any type of player failure, like dropped fruit or bombs, making it pointless to play. I believe that this adherence to simplicity and refusal to further complicate the game is what led Half-Brick to update the game in the way they did. Meta progression, gimmicky blade effects, a lot of elements to create the illusion of complexity without actually having to introduce it into the game. It is easier and safer to slap an insignificant percentage on a blade than it is to create trickier patterns. Such fruit patterns are not palpable, might turn away some players. This is surely the financially sound decision. Fruit Ninja has made enough money to trim the profits of most games in history. But when it comes to game design, there is a very fine line between being focused and being too simple for your own good.